Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. I read Stephen King for the first time. I have little cat ears and stuff on because it's Halloween, well, almost Halloween. But yeah, I thought I'd just be getting into spooky season. This month I read a lot of spooky books, but I wanted to read some Stephen King books, and I read The Shining and I read The Outsider, and I really enjoyed both of these books. I heard some critiques about Stephen King in terms of like he tends to get long-winded, and he tends to it tends to be so long-winded and not have unnecessary details, and we have pages and stretches of pages where nothing happens kind of thing. But I didn't find that part so boring, and I think it's because his characters were so well-rounded and so good. I really enjoyed following all these characters that we had in both of these books. And I just love character-driven stories, so like even just sitting with a character and doing nothing for like 5 pages was okay with me, I guess. So the first book I read this for Stephen King was The Shining. I really enjoyed this book. It's basically about this family, and the father lost his job due to circumstances and incidences, and so now he has to take a job as a hotel caretaker for over winter, and they would have basically no communication with the outside world, and they're stuck in this hotel for months while they're being snowed in. And he has to be caretaker of the hotel, so check the boiler, fix the shingles, blah 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 blah. And so he and his family goes there and stays there, and I guess you kind of see what happens. I don't want to spoil anything, and so I'm not going to say anything else. But it was really fun. I have some footage, I think, of when I was reading this book. I'll stick it in here. Okay, so I may have lied about not ever reading a Stephen King book before. Because like when I was listening to The Shining, I was like, this feels familiar to like Haunting of Hill House and that kind of vibe. And I was like, okay, interesting. And that reminded me of another book that I've read. And this book is called Gwendolyn's Button Box. I'll just put it up on screen. I don't really remember that. Whatever. And I know he wasn't the only author that worked on this, but turns out I have read a Stephen King book before. I just didn't know. I haven't really read, like, I guess a novel from Stephen King before. I mean, it was like Gwendolyn's Button Boxing was a super short read, and it's like, it was like a novella, really. But damn, I guess I lied. I'm sorry. Also, if you haven't noticed, I never say authors' names when I tell you which book I've read. And it's just because I'm so bad at remembering names, and it's like really bad because I want to be a teacher and I'm terrible with names. Like something I need to work on for real, but yeah, so I had no idea. I read a book from him, and the only reason I realized it was because his writing reminded me of his other writing. I'm like, oh my god. Yeah, like sometimes I won't realize that I have read from one author, like another book from the same author, and I'm like, oh, this has the same like vibes or writing style as this book. And then I look at the author and it's the literal same author. Like that happened with me, and like when I was reading Zen Cho's work, and I was like, oh, this writing's very similar to like that book I read. And then days later or months later, or when I'm doing my wrap-ups, I'm like, oh, this is the same author. That's why. But when I was reading it, yeah, like I said, I am really terrible with names, and I'm really terrible with remembering author names, and I didn't realize I actually read a Stephen King book before. Like, it was the Gwendolyn's Button Box, and it's because The Shining reminded me of Hill House, the one on Netflix, and I was like, oh, that has similar vibes. And then the Hill House reminded me of another book I read, which was Gwendolyn's Button Box, because of this weird, it was just kind of this weird supernatural kind of thing. And then I realized, like, oh, this, like, The Shining felt familiar to another book I've read, essentially. And turns out it was because it was by the same author. And this happens a lot with me in terms of authors. So, yeah. Guess it's technically not my first time reading Stephen King. I read one Stephen King book before, and I thought it was okay. I didn't care much for it. I thought it was a cool premise, interesting, and yeah. In The Shining, the one thing I really disliked was the use of the N-word and how casually King used it throughout the book, and it was not good. It's not a good look, and I did not like that. And I get, like, the time, quote unquote, was different, and even the time when he was writing this book was different, and even the time when he was, you know, the time it was taking place in was different. Like, it was still not, I don't know, I was very uncomfortable with it. But I still, overall, I enjoyed the book. I just did not like the use of that so casually. Yeah, and I guess part of it is also that I was listening to the audiobook. So, like, the audiobook narrator just said it so casually. Yeah, I didn't like it. So, I didn't like that part. So, I guess I just noticed it more because it was actually said out loud. And I was like, whoa. And for The Shining, I gave that one 4.5 stars. So, the next book I read was The Outsider. I really enjoyed The Outsider too. I think not as much as The Shining, but I did enjoy this book a lot. I kind of, I don't know, like, if I just watched too much supernatural stuff or, like, read too much fantasy books, but I feel like most people would have guessed this, but I don't want to spoil it, so I won't say anything. But I predicted who the culprit was pretty early on. So basically, there is this crime that was committed against a boy, and it was one of the most brutal crimes that this police station has ever seen and the world has seen in a while. And so they find all this evidence and it links back to one dude, but things are just not adding up and things are just being weird, and it just didn't make sense. And there was just a lot of things in the case that the cops were like, something is not right here. And so they have to, like, try to figure out if who the killer is, and or if the guy that they have is the killer. And yeah, so it was good. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the relationship that, what is his name, Gene? The cop guy, the main cop guy, our main detective, and his wife has. It's so cute. It feels like it's not one of those boomer relationships where that's like, I hate my wife, ha ha ha, ball and chain, blah blah blah. Like, it actually feels like, I love my wife, I'm glad that I'm her partner, and the wife is like, I love him, I'm glad he's my partner. Like, it very much feels like a good, healthy relationship, which is nice. It's good to have. I love those, especially with older people in relationships who are married. I really enjoy when they actually love each other. So there's that. And like, a character came in, like, partway through the book, Holly, and apparently she's, like, part of another series. Like, I was like, this feels like there's, like, more to her story and, like, more that she's talking about. So yeah, apparently, like, it's part of another Stephen King series. I'll put it up on screen if I remember to. Okay, Loki, at times, the narrator for the audiobook kind of sounded like Trump. It was kind of funny. I'm sorry. And I'd be like, oh, like, just sometimes, but it was still kind of funny to hear that. I enjoyed both of these books. I love character-driven stories, so it was easy to, like, root for these characters that Stephen King created. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope I'll see you in the next video, which is next Friday, and I hope you have a good day/night. Bye. Happy Halloween.